Every word you read connects you to a revolution that began in ancient clay. Writing started as sacred symbols and grew into the scripts that built empires, giving voice to entire civilizations. By the end of this journey, you will understand how humanity's greatest invention shaped our world and why its past is essential for our future. We will uncover why mysterious symbols were carved in stone and how they evolved to command armies and record laws. What do you believe is the most powerful idea ever put into writing? Deep within the cool darkness of a cave, a hand guided by belief pressed against the stone wall. This was not mere decoration. These first marks, these pictographs and petroglyphs, were a profound attempt to capture the unseen. For early humans, the world was alive with spirits and forces beyond their direct control. By drawing a powerful bison or a hunting scene, they were not just recording an event, they were reaching out. They were creating a sacred representation, a permanent conduit to the spiritual realm, transforming a cave into a place of ritual and memory. Look at the vibrant halls of Lascaux. The animals gallop across the rock, full of life and movement. Researchers suggest these were not simple pictures but powerful symbols embedded with cultural meaning. They served as anchors for oral traditions, helping storytellers and shamans recall complex myths and vital knowledge for their community. What were these ancient artists trying to preserve for eternity? Perhaps it was a prayer for a successful hunt, a map of the stars, or the story of their ancestors. They were using the only tools they had to make sense of their world and leave a message for the future. This sacred need to communicate, to make the intangible permanent, was the very spark that ignited the long journey toward writing. That sacred spark, born in the shadows of caves, needed a new kind of fuel to become a true flame. It found it in the sun-baked mud of Mesopotamia, in the world's first great cities. Here, among the bustling markets and towering temples of Uruk, writing took its first practical breath. The medium was humble, just wet clay from the riverbanks. The tool was a simple reed cut at an angle, but the marks it left, a series of wedge-shaped impressions we call cuneiform, would change everything. This was no longer just about communing with spirits. This was about counting sacks of grain, recording land boundaries, and managing the vast wealth of a temple. Think of the first scribes, their hands moving quickly, pressing the stylus into the soft surface to denote numbers of sheep or jars of oil. What began as straightforward pictographs, little pictures of commodities, soon grew more complex out of sheer necessity. How do you write a name or an abstract idea like justice with a picture of a barley stalk? The system evolved, with signs starting to represent sounds instead of just objects. This was the monumental leap, the moment a writing system could capture the full, flowing complexity of human language. This adaptability allowed cuneiform to become the administrative backbone of empires. It was used to inscribe the Code of Ur-Nammu, one of the oldest known law codes, establishing order and consequence for an entire society. And in a stunning transformation, this system of accountancy gave birth to literature. The Epic of Gilgamesh, the thrilling story of a king's quest for immortality, was pressed into clay tablets for the ages. From tracking temple supplies to exploring the deepest questions of life and death, cuneiform proved that writing was not just a tool for power, but a vessel for the human soul. These fragile clay tablets, baked hard in the desert sun, became the unexpected bedrock of history itself. Yet even as cuneiform recorded the flow of commerce and kings, another civilization was carving a different kind of power into stone. In the glaring sun of Egypt, along the banks of the life-giving Nile, writing was not an administrative tool but a divine gift. These were the hieroglyphs, known to the Egyptians as Medu Neter, the words of the gods themselves. Emerging around 3,200 years before the Common Era, This script was a breathtaking fusion of art and language. A single symbol could represent an object, a sound, or a deeper conceptual idea, all woven together into a sacred tapestry of meaning. They were far more than simple decoration on a temple wall. Each carefully carved ibis, ankh, and eye was believed to pulse with magical energy, a direct connection to the divine realm that sustained the universe. The pharaoh, as a god-king, used these inscriptions to assert his eternal authority and maintain cosmic order, or mot. Why were such intricate symbols reserved for tombs and monuments? Egyptologists explain that hieroglyphs held immense power, making them suitable only for the most sacred and eternal contexts. For everyday documents like letters and records, a simplified, flowing script called hieratic was used by scribes. This separation reveals a profound cultural belief that certain words, in their most perfect form, were meant for the gods and eternity, not for the mundane affairs of daily life. The legacy of these divine words was almost lost to time, their meaning sealed away for centuries. The key to their rediscovery was a single, unassuming slab of black granite, the Rosetta stone. Inscribed with the same decree in 3 scripts, Greek, Demotic, and Hieroglyphic, it provided the crucial cipher that allowed scholars like Jean-François Champollion to finally crack the code. Suddenly, the voices of the pharaohs could be heard again, their stories of triumph, devotion, and belief emerging from the silent stone. The hieroglyphs did not just record history, they were an active force in creating it, bridging the gap between the human and the holy to immortalize a civilization's soul. Far to the east of Mesopotamia and Egypt, a different kind of mystery was being stamped into soft stone. The great cities of the Indus Valley, Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, were marvels of ancient urban planning with their sophisticated drainage systems and orderly streets. Yet for all their evident advancement, they left behind a silent enigma. Thousands of small, square seals have been unearthed, each one carved with a brief string of elegant, geometric symbols and accompanied by a beautifully depicted animal, like a majestic bull or a mythical unicorn. These markings, dating back to around 2,600 years before the Common Era, represent one of history's most stubborn puzzles, a script that has defied all attempts to read it. Are these intricate sequences a true written language, recording the names of merchants or the contents of clay pots? Or are they something else entirely, perhaps a system of religious symbols or clan identifiers that never meant to capture spoken words? Researchers have proposed countless theories, with some suggesting links to ancient Dravidian languages, while others argue the symbols are purely non-linguistic, a complex code of ownership and status. The seals themselves offer tantalizing clues. They were likely used in trade, pressed into wet clay to mark bundles of goods, their distinctive animal motifs acting as a brand. But many were also found in contexts that suggest a deeper, ceremonial purpose. What stories did these people wish to seal away for eternity? Without a Rosetta Stone, a bilingual text that can act as a key, the voices of the Indus Valley civilization remain hauntingly silent. This great unsolved mystery forces us to reconsider what writing even is. It reminds us that not every sophisticated society chose to record its laws and legends in a way we can now understand. The very absence of an answer speaks volumes about the incredible diversity of human communication, proving that the drive to create symbols and meaning could follow paths we are only beginning to imagine. While the Indus script remains an elegant mystery, other ancient cultures left no doubt about their intentions. In the royal courts of the Shang dynasty, the future was being carved into bone. A diviner would press a hot bronze rod against a carefully prepared turtle plastron or an ox scapula. The shell would crack with a sharp sound, a network of lines believed to be a direct message from the ancestral spirits. And then, with meticulous care, a scribe would carve the question and the resulting prophecy directly into the bone, often finishing by inking the inscription and pressing it onto silk to create a record. This was the birth of Chinese writing. These oracle bone scripts, dating to around 1,200 years before the Common Era, are the earliest confirmed ancestors of the characters used by over 1 billion people today. The questions posed to the spirits were matters of state, reflecting a worldview where the royal court was intertwined with the cosmos. Will the harvest be abundant? Should the king launch an attack next week? Is the coming illness a sign of ancestral displeasure? Each inscription was a logograph, a single character representing a whole word or concept. You can see the evolution right on the bone. Early pictographs for sun and mountain are clearly recognizable, but they are already blending with more abstract signs that represent sounds or ideas. This sophisticated fusion allowed the script to capture the full complexity of the spoken language. These bones did more than predict the future, they recorded it. Inscriptions note celestial events like eclipses and lunar phases, providing a stunningly precise historical record. They detail elaborate rituals involving music and offerings, preserving the spiritual fabric of a civilization. How did these fragile divinations become the bedrock of a continuous 3,000-year written tradition? The answer lies in their adaptability. As the Shang gave way to later dynasties, the script was cast in bronze on sacred vessels and later standardized into the elegant characters we know today. The oracle bones show us that in China, writing was never just a practical tool. From its very inception, it was a sacred act, a bridge to the divine that simultaneously solidified the authority of the state and forged an unbroken chain of cultural identity. While the Shang inscribed questions for the gods on bone, a revolution in simplicity was taking shape on the shores of the Mediterranean. Phoenician merchants, masters of the sea, required a script as swift and efficient as their trade ships. They had no use for the thousands of complex signs used by scribes in Egypt or Mesopotamia. Their world was one of contracts, cargo manifests, and quick communications between distant ports. So they refined and distilled earlier scripts into something breathtakingly practical, a system of just 22 characters. This was not a collection of pictographs or complex syllables. Each symbol represented a single consonant sound, a building block of speech that could be rearranged to form any word. For the first time, the power of writing was no longer locked away in temple archives or royal scriptoria. It could be learned in a matter of days, not years. Imagine a merchant in the bustling port of Byblos, quickly jotting down a transaction on a piece of papyrus with a few simple strokes. This was the new reality. The alphabet was portable, both in its physical form and in its ease of learning. It traveled along the same maritime routes as Phoenician cedar wood and precious purple dye, reaching Greece, Italy, and beyond. What made this system so transformative was its sheer adaptability. The Greeks encountered it and saw its potential, but they faced a problem. Their language was rich with vowel sounds that the consonant-only Phoenician script could not fully capture. So they made a brilliant modification, repurposing a few of the Phoenician characters that represented sounds unused in Greek to become the world's first dedicated vowel letters, A, E, I, O, U. This single innovation made the alphabet even more precise and flexible. From Greece, this enhanced script would travel to Rome, evolving into the Latin alphabet that you are using to read these very words. The Phoenicians did not set out to create literature or record sacred hymns. Their goal was commerce, yet by democratizing literacy, by turning writing into a tool for the many instead of the privileged few, they accidentally laid the foundational communication network for the Western world. Their simple set of symbols became the ultimate cultural export, proving that the most powerful ideas are often those that are the most accessible. Those simple Phoenician characters, now equipped with the power of vowels, found a new home in the vibrant heart of ancient Greece. In the bustling agora, the marketplace of both goods and ideas, This new alphabet became the engine of an intellectual revolution. For the first time, the subtle rhythms and nuanced sounds of the spoken word could be captured with stunning accuracy. This was not a script reserved for priests and kings. It was a tool for poets, playwrights, and philosophers. Imagine the monumental shift when the epic tales of Homer, once passed down through generations by memory alone, were committed to papyrus. The Iliad and the Odyssey were no longer fleeting performances. They became permanent fixtures of culture, their heroes and gods forever locked in a struggle that would educate and inspire for millennia. This act of preservation transformed storytelling itself, creating a shared literary foundation for the entire Greek world. But the alphabet's true power went far beyond poetry. It gave voice to rational inquiry. Philosophers like Plato and Aristotle could now construct complex arguments about justice, reality, and the ideal state, their dialogues written down to be studied, debated, and challenged by future thinkers. How did this tool support the radical experiment of Athenian democracy? The answer is etched in stone. Laws and decrees were carved into public stelae for all to see, creating a transparent legal framework that empowered citizens. A farmer or a potter could, in theory, read the very rules that governed his life. This fostered a culture of participation and civic duty, where the written word became a pillar of public life, not a tool of royal control. The same script that recorded a tragic play by Sophocles could also articulate a geometric proof by Euclid. It captured the precise formulas of Archimedes and the historical investigations of Herodotus. This versatility is what made the Greek alphabet a true vehicle for human progress. It amplified creativity and codified reason, proving that when a writing system is accessible and precise, it doesn't just record a civilization, it actively builds one, unlocking the full potential of the human mind. The legacy of the Greek alphabet found its ultimate expression in the hands of Roman engineers. Across the sprawling empire, from the forums of Rome to the distant outposts of Britannia, writing was no longer just a tool for philosophy or poetry. It was an instrument of power carved in stone. The crisp, severe lines of Roman capital letters were chiseled into the bases of triumphant arches and across the facades of majestic temples. These were not mere decorations, they were declarations. Each perfectly proportioned letter, like those adorning Trajan's column, was an architectural feat in itself, designed for maximum legibility and grandeur from a distance. This was a script built to last, as enduring as the roads and aqueducts that stitched the empire together. Why invest such incredible effort in monumental writing? The answer lies in the very nature of Roman rule. In a realm spanning 3 continents, a standardized alphabet was the glue that held the administration together. Edicts issued from the Senate in Rome could be understood by a legionnaire stationed in Egypt or a tax collector in Hispania. The same letters that spelled out the name of an emperor on a coin also recorded the intricate details of Roman law on bronze tablets, establishing a common legal framework for millions. This visual consistency created a powerful sense of Roman identity, a shared cultural code that could be recognized from the bustling markets of Carthage to the quiet frontiers along the Danube. The inscriptions celebrated more than military conquests. They promoted civic virtues like piety and honor, weaving the ideals of the state directly into the urban landscape. Every citizen, whether literate or not, could look upon these carved words and understand the source of authority. The Roman alphabet was the operating system of an empire, a masterwork of communication, engineering whose clarity and strength still influence the very letters you are reading now. This was writing as a public utility, designed not just to inform but to unify and command. Far from the sun-bleached stone of Roman monuments, writing took on a different character in the deep, mist-shrouded woods of northern Europe. Here, amidst ancient oaks and whispering pines, the Germanic tribes carved angular symbols into wood and stone, believing each mark held a power far beyond mere communication. These were the runes, a script known as the Elder Futhark, emerging around the 2nd century of the Common Era. Each rune was more than a letter, it was a concept, a key to unseen forces. The rune Fer, who represented cattle and wealth, while Thurisaz could signify a thorn or a giant, a symbol of both danger and defense. The very act of inscribing them was a ritual, a way to tap into the fabric of fate. Legends told that the god Odin himself had won the knowledge of the runes through a great ordeal, hanging 9 nights on the world tree, a sacrifice for cosmic wisdom. This divine origin infused the script with a profound mystique. A warrior might carve the Tu as rune, the mark of the god Tyr, onto his spear for victory in battle. A family would raise a rune stone as a memorial, its inscription ensuring the deeds of their ancestors would not be forgotten by the gods or by people. The runes were tools of divination, cast onto a cloth by a seer to read the patterns of what was to come. How did a simple notch on a stick become a conduit for prophecy? For these cultures, the world was alive with magic, and writing was a way to speak directly to its hidden layers. Across the sea in Ireland, another enigmatic script emerged from the Celtic world. Ogham appears as a series of straight lines and notches cut along the edge of a standing stone. It looks less like writing and more like a secret code, which it may well have been. Each group of marks represents a letter in the early Irish language, with the alphabet itself named for the god Ogma, a figure renowned for his eloquence and strength. The pillars inscribed with Ogham often mark territorial boundaries or commemorate important individuals, their messages literally set in stone for the community. Many researchers propose a strong link to the Druids, the learned class of Celtic society, suggesting Ogham may have served as a mnemonic device for their vast oral knowledge of law, genealogy, and poetry. To read an Ogham inscription is to run your fingers over a fossilized thought, a name like Bran or Lugaid made permanent in a language of lines. Both runes and Ogham reflect a worldview where the boundary between the physical and spiritual was thin. They were not created for administrative lists or lengthy philosophical texts, but to claim identity, to honor the dead, and to seek favor from a world alive with spirits. Their power lay in their mystery, a stark contrast to the open declarations of Rome, reminding us that writing could also be a whispered secret, a personal pact with the unseen. Deep in the humid embrace of the Mesoamerican jungle, a civilization was charting the cosmos with ink and stone. The Maya developed one of the most complex writing systems in the ancient world, a vibrant tapestry of glyphs that wove together history, astronomy, and royal power. Their script, emerging by around 300 years before the Common Era, was a sophisticated mix of logographs for whole words and syllabic signs for sounds, allowing scribes to capture the rich nuances of their language. They recorded this knowledge in 2 primary ways: folding books made of fig bark paper known as codices, and immense stone pillars called stelae that were erected in city plazas. Each inscription was far more than a simple record. It was a sacred act, a way to anchor human events within the grand, cyclical machinery of the universe. The Maya perceived time not as a straight line, but as a great wheel of repeating cycles, and their writing was the tool they used to navigate its turns. They calculated celestial events with breathtaking precision, predicting the movements of Venus and solar eclipses centuries in advance. How did a script manage to encode such advanced mathematics and cosmology? The glyphs themselves hold the answer, with specific symbols representing units of time and numerical values that allowed scribes to compute vast cycles. A single stela could tell the story of a king's birth, his accession to the throne, and his military victories, all while explicitly linking these events to specific dates in a complex calendar and the favor of specific gods. For decades, these intricate glyphs were considered an impenetrable mystery. The breakthrough came when epigraphers realized the script was largely phonetic, a revelation that unlocked the stories of legendary rulers like Pakal the Great of Palenque. The carvings on his sarcophagus lid depict his cosmic journey through the underworld, reborn as the Maize God, a narrative that seamlessly blends political biography with spiritual transformation. This was the core purpose of Mayan writing, to legitimize the ruler's power by demonstrating his divine connection and his role in maintaining the cosmic order. The glyphs were the engine of a highly organized society, used to record tributes, treaties, and lineage, ensuring the state's stability. Yet, despite this profound cultural achievement, the great Mayan cities were largely abandoned. The writing did not disappear, but its monumental use faded, and many of the bark paper codices were later destroyed by climate or conflict. The secrets that remain, however, speak to a civilization that used writing not just to rule, but to truly converse with the stars, leaving behind a legacy where every carved symbol was a bridge between the earthly and the eternal. The flowing elegance of Arabic script transforms words into a visual hymn. In the great mosques of Damascus and Cordoba, artists did not simply write, they wove the divine word into the very fabric of their architecture. This was Islamic calligraphy, an art form born in the 7th century with the revelation of the Quran. For Muslims, the text was the literal word of God, and to transcribe it was an act of profound devotion. The script itself became a sacred vessel, rendered with breathtaking skill and reverence to honor its holy content. Why did this form of writing become so central to Islamic culture? The answer lies in a spiritual principle, the avoidance of imagery that could be seen as idolatry. In place of figural art, calligraphy became the primary visual expression of faith, a way to beautify the word of God without creating a physical representation. Styles evolved to suit different purposes, from the stark, angular Kufic script adorning early mosque walls to the fluid, legible Naskh used for copying the Quran by hand. Each stroke was a meditation, each completed page an offering. This was more than decoration, it was a spiritual practice in ink. The unifying power of this script stretched far beyond the mosque. As the Islamic world expanded, Arabic calligraphy became a common cultural thread, a visual language that could be recognized from Spain to India. It was this shared script that carried not just scripture, but the entire weight of knowledge during the golden age of Islam. The same elegant hand that copied a verse from the Quran might also transcribe the philosophical works of Aristotle or the medical texts of Galen, preserving ancient wisdom that might otherwise have been lost. Scholars in Baghdad and Cairo built upon this knowledge, making groundbreaking advances in algebra, optics, and astronomy, all recorded in the flowing lines of Arabic script. Calligraphy was the engine of this intellectual flourishing, proving that a writing system developed for worship could also become the most powerful tool for learning and cross-cultural exchange. The ink and parchment became a bridge, connecting faith to reason and carrying the light of knowledge across continents. The quiet hum of prayer was the only sound in the monastery scriptorium, a room dedicated to the slow, sacred art of preservation. Here, for centuries, the written word found a sanctuary. While empires had fallen and kingdoms fractured across Europe, monks became the guardians of knowledge, their hands patiently copying and recopying the texts that would light the way through the so-called Dark Ages. Their primary mission was devotional, to produce beautiful copies of the Bible and liturgical works, but in doing so, they saved the voices of classical antiquity as well, preserving the philosophy of Plato and the science of Galen for future generations. The pages they created were far more than simple text. They were illuminated, a term that literally means filled with light. Scribes would painstakingly apply gold leaf to the vellum, a fine parchment made from animal skin, causing the pages to shimmer as if lit from within. Intricate illustrations and ornate initial letters wove together scripture and art, transforming each book into a transcendent object. The famous Book of Kells, with its impossibly complex Celtic knots and vibrant depictions of evangelists, is a masterpiece of this form. Why invest such incredible effort into a single book? In a world where few could read, these visual elements served a profound purpose. The illustrations were a Bible for the illiterate, a way to convey sacred stories through stunning imagery that inspired awe and devotion in anyone who beheld them. The creation of a single manuscript was a monumental undertaking, a labor of love and faith that could span years. It began with the parchment itself, soaked, stretched, and scraped until it was perfectly smooth. The scribe would then rule the page with faint lines and begin the meticulous work of copying the text, letter by letter, using a quill and iron gall ink. They developed highly legible scripts like Carolingian minuscule, with its clear, uniform letters and distinct separation between words, a revolutionary step that made reading easier and spread across the empire of Charlemagne. After the text was complete, the illuminator would add the dazzling gold and brilliant colors ground from minerals and plants. Finally, the bookbinder would gather the pages and sew them into a sturdy leather-covered board, creating a treasure meant to last for centuries. These illuminated manuscripts became the core of monastic libraries, the central hubs of learning and education. They were tools for teaching new monks, for the daily rhythm of prayer, and for safeguarding the very foundation of Western thought. In an age of fragmentation, these quiet rooms and the books they produced became a fragile but unbreakable chain, linking the ancient world to the Renaissance, ensuring that the light of knowledge once kindled would never fully go out. The steady rhythm of the printing press echoed the new heartbeat of Europe. In the middle of the 15th century, Johannes Gutenberg's workshop in Mainz was the epicenter of a revolution, not of weapons but of words. His invention of movable type mechanized the ancient art of writing. Each small metal letter could be arranged, inked, and pressed onto paper, then disassembled and reused to form an entirely new page. This was a seismic shift from the painstaking labor of the monastic scribe. For the first time, books were no longer singular, priceless artifacts. They became commodities that could be produced by the hundreds, their cost plummeting as their numbers soared. The Gutenberg Bible, with its crisp, uniform columns of text, was not just a religious document. It was a declaration that knowledge was now a force to be multiplied. What made this machine so transformative was its sheer efficiency. A single press could produce in one day what might have taken a scribe an entire year to copy by hand. This technological leap fundamentally altered the relationship between people and the written word. Literacy, once a privilege of the clergy and the elite, began to spread among merchants, artisans, and eventually the common citizen. As more people learned to read, the demand for more diverse texts grew, creating a powerful feedback loop that propelled Europe out of the age of manuscripts and into the era of mass communication. The very nature of language itself began to solidify, as printed books established standardized spellings and grammatical rules, gradually smoothing out the vast differences between regional dialects and forging unified national languages. This standardization was the invisible framework upon which modern nations would be built. The press became the engine of the Renaissance, carrying the recovered wisdom of Greek and Roman thinkers to a hungry audience. It was the megaphone for the Reformation, as Martin Luther's 95 Theses were printed and spread across Germany in weeks, not years, challenging centuries of ecclesiastical authority by putting theological debate directly into the hands of the public. Scientific ideas, once confined to small circles of scholars, could now be shared, verified, and built upon with unprecedented speed, accelerating the pace of discovery. The printing press did not just distribute information, it created a new intellectual ecosystem, a vibrant and often chaotic arena of public discourse where ideas competed for influence. It transformed writing from a tool for recording power into an instrument for challenging it, proving that the most dangerous invention is not one that controls bodies, but one that liberates minds. The clatter of the printing press did not silence the human hand. Instead, it freed writing for a new purpose, one of personal speed and individual flair. In the quiet studies of Renaissance scholars and the bustling counting houses of merchants, a new style of script was flowing from the quill, elegant, connected, and swift. This was cursive, a dance of ink on paper that transformed writing from a formal act of reproduction into an intimate expression of the self. Styles like italic, with its slanted, rhythmic letters, and the later, more ornate copperplate, emerged from a simple need to write faster without sacrificing clarity. The relentless pace of commerce and diplomacy demanded quick notation in ledgers and the drafting of countless letters. A merchant could now record a complex transaction in a single, fluid motion, his hand barely leaving the page. This efficiency became the lifeblood of growing bureaucracies and the foundation of international correspondence. The personal letters of William Shakespeare, though few survive, were likely penned in such a hand, the very instrument that allowed him to manage his theatrical business and maintain the connections that fueled his world. This was not merely a practical shift. As writing became a common personal skill, your hand itself became a signature of your identity. Graphologists observe that handwriting began to be seen as a window into character, with its flourishes and pressure hinting at education, temperament, and even social standing. To meet this new cultural demand, copybooks were published, teaching standardized forms of cursive that students across Europe would practice for generations, their arms aching as they traced the same perfect loops and lines. Why did this personal scribble gain such profound significance? It represented a beautiful compromise, a system that balanced the relentless demand for efficiency with an enduring human desire for artistry. The development of cursive illustrates writing's incredible adaptability, molding itself not just to the needs of empires, but to the rhythm of a single, thinking mind seeking to leave its unique and lasting mark. The rhythmic clatter of the typewriter introduced a new kind of music to the modern office. This was the sound of text becoming a physical product, hammered onto paper with mechanical precision. Invented in the 1860s and popularized by models like the Remington, the typewriter transformed writing from a flowing art into an act of engineering. Each keystroke produced a character of uniform shape and spacing, creating documents that were instantly legible and professionally consistent. For the first time, a business letter written in New York looked exactly like one produced in Chicago, establishing a new standard for clear communication. This leap in efficiency was not just about speed, it reshaped the entire workforce. The demand for quick, accurate typists created a surge of clerical opportunities, roles that were increasingly filled by women. This shift offered many a new path into the professional world, changing social dynamics and fueling economic modernization. How did this machine alter the very texture of language? The QWERTY keyboard layout, designed to prevent mechanical jams, trained our fingers to a new logic, embedding itself so deeply into our culture that it survives on our devices today. Even literature felt the impact. Authors like Mark Twain embraced the new technology, submitting the first typewritten manuscript for a novel. The direct, punchy prose of the early 20th century owes a debt to the tactile, percussive nature of composing on a machine. A writer could now see their words impersonally rendered in clean, black ink, a process that perhaps encouraged a more direct and less ornamental style. The typewriter did not just produce text, it industrialized thought, channeling the flow of ideas into a standardized format. This mechanization was a quiet but profound revolution, one that prepared the world for the next great leap. It foreshadowed a future where words would become pure information, dematerialized into light and electricity, setting the stage for the digital age to come. The cold precision of the typewriter was just the beginning. words were about to break free from the page entirely, becoming streams of pure light and electricity. In the quiet hum of computer labs during the late 20th century, writing underwent its most radical transformation. Word processors replaced the clatter of keys with the silent glow of pixels on a screen. For the first time, a sentence was no longer a permanent mark. It could be deleted, moved, or rewritten with a few clicks, turning the act of composition into a fluid, dynamic process. This was a new kind of clay, infinitely malleable. The true revolution arrived with the internet, born from projects like ARPANET, a network designed for researchers to share information. Suddenly, a letter could travel across the world in seconds as an email, collapsing distances that had constrained communication for millennia. This was not just faster mail, it was the birth of a new, interactive dimension for the written word. Bulletin board systems and early chat rooms allowed for real-time conversations, where writing became a tool for immediate connection, forging communities bound by interest rather than geography. How did this shift democratize the very idea of an author? The answer lies in the blog. With a few simple clicks, anyone with an internet connection could publish their thoughts to a potential global audience, bypassing the traditional gatekeepers of publishing houses and media conglomerates. This unprecedented access to a public voice has empowered social movements and given rise to new literary forms. Yet this ocean of information also brought new challenges. How do we verify authenticity in an age of digital forgeries and anonymous posts? The constant stream of content can lead to a sense of overload, making it difficult to discern signal from noise. This new ecosystem even created its own languages. Tech experts note that coding, the writing of software, is a logical and creative form of composition in its own right. A programmer writes instructions in a specific syntax, and that text literally builds the digital worlds we now inhabit, from social media platforms to the very tools used to write this script. These codes are the invisible architecture of modern life. This digital transformation has also reshaped literacy itself. The emoji, for instance, functions as a modern pictograph, a small, universal symbol that adds emotional nuance to our text-based messages, much like the expressive animals in the caves of Lascaux. And just as we once worried about the preservation of clay tablets and parchment, we now face the question of digital archives. How do we ensure that our collective memory, stored on servers and in the cloud, remains accessible to future generations? The digital era has not diminished writing, it has unleashed it, turning every connected individual into both a reader and a potential scribe, forever redefining what it means to share a thought with the world. A heart symbol tapped on a screen carries the same universal power as an ancient Egyptian ankh. These modern glyphs, our emojis and logos, are the direct descendants of those first sacred symbols carved in stone. They fulfill a deeply rooted human need to convey complex feelings and identities through simple, visual shorthand. In the bustling global village of digital communication, a single crying face emoji can express a depth of sadness that might otherwise require words in a dozen different languages. This is not so different from the way a Phoenician merchant might have recognized a carved anchor on a seal, understanding its meaning instantly without sharing a common tongue. These symbols form a new kind of pictographic language, one that bridges cultural divides with remarkable efficiency. Marketing strategists observe that corporate logos function as modern clan totems. The iconic apple or the swoosh are not just images, they are vessels of meaning, built to evoke feelings of innovation, reliability, or belonging. We carry these symbols on our devices and our clothing, using them to signal our affiliations and values to the world, much like an Indus Valley trader might have used a stamped unicorn seal to guarantee the quality of his goods. Why does this visual language feel so instinctive? The answer lies in our cognitive wiring. our brains process images faster than text, making symbols an incredibly efficient channel for meaning. A red cross immediately signals medical aid, a skull and crossbones warns of danger, and a heart can represent love, gratitude, or a simple like. This immediate understanding fosters a sense of shared identity and community, whether you are part of a brand's loyal following or a member of a social media group that communicates primarily through inside jokes and reaction GIFs. The continuous thread from cave paintings to corporate mascots reveals an undeniable truth about our species. We are inherently symbolic creatures, forever seeking to compress the vast ocean of human experience into a single, powerful image that can be understood across time and space. A polished black granite wall, reflecting the faces of visitors, carries the weight of 58,000 names. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. transforms writing into a profound public experience, where each engraved name is a permanent point of contact with a personal story. This is not writing meant to be quickly read, but to be felt, a modern monument that draws on the ancient authority of carved stone to honor collective memory. Architects and city planners continue this tradition, using monumental scripts to shape the very identity of our urban landscapes. Look at the facades of corporate headquarters or the bases of soaring skyscrapers, where the clean, assertive lines of sans serif typefaces echo the imperial confidence of Roman capitals. These letters are not merely labels, they are statements of permanence and purpose, branding a skyline with a name meant to last for generations. In public squares from Berlin to Seoul, inscriptions on the grounds of museums or embedded in paving stones recount histories of place and community, inviting passers-by to pause and reflect. Why does this age-old practice of carving words into our environment remain so powerful? Urban designers note that these integrated texts create a layer of shared narrative, turning a simple plaza or building into a site of cultural discourse. They are waypoints in the story a city tells about itself, whether celebrating innovation, acknowledging a complex past, or promoting ideals of unity. The emotional impact is immediate and visceral. Running your fingers over the raised bronze letters of a historical marker creates a tangible link to another time. Observing the way light catches the deeply incised poetry on a library's entrance can transform a daily commute into a moment of unexpected beauty. These installations are a fusion of art and language, designed to be experienced with the whole body, not just the eyes. How does this enduring presence of monumental writing influence our shared spaces? It proves that the human need to inscribe our values and our losses onto the world is as vital now as it was in the forums of ancient Rome. In an age of fleeting digital messages, these carved words offer a counterweight of permanence, ensuring that our most important stories, our honored names, and our highest aspirations remain physically rooted in the world we build together. A language is an entire universe of memory and meaning, and its disappearance is a quiet eclipse. Yet today, that ancient power of the written word is being harnessed as a vital tool of cultural resurrection. In New Zealand, the Maori people have long carved their ancestral stories and genealogies directly into the wooden walls of their meeting houses, or waranui. These structures are themselves living texts, where every beam and panel speaks of a lineage that connects the community to its past. Now, this tradition is being amplified through digital means, with online dictionaries and language apps ensuring that the Maori language, Te Reo, is not just preserved but actively spoken by new generations. This is not merely an academic exercise, it is an act of resilience. Writing serves as an anchor, documenting oral histories, songs, and spiritual knowledge that globalization might otherwise wash away. Linguists often partner with communities, collaborating to develop writing systems for languages that have existed solely in the spoken word for centuries. One of the most powerful historical examples is the Cherokee syllabary created by Sequoyah in the 1820s. He saw the power of the white man's talking leaves, and though he did not speak English, dedicated years to analyzing the concept of writing. He then single-handedly invented a unique set of 86 characters that perfectly captured the sounds of the Cherokee language. Almost overnight, his people achieved mass literacy, publishing newspapers and recording their laws, using this new script as a shield against cultural erosion. An even more profound case is the revitalization of Hebrew. For nearly 2,000 years, it existed primarily as a sacred, liturgical language, frozen in religious text. Then, in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, a concerted movement began to revive it as a living, spoken tongue for daily life. This was an unprecedented linguistic miracle, taking a language preserved in writing and breathing it back into the mouths of children on playgrounds and in markets. Why is this written documentation so crucial for cultural continuity? An oral tradition is a fragile flame, passed carefully from one hand to the next, but a written record is a kind of seed bank, safeguarding the core of a culture even through periods of immense hardship. It allows a dispersed community to maintain a shared identity and gives future generations the key to unlock their own heritage. These modern efforts underscore a profound truth, that writing remains one of our most powerful instruments for guarding the beautiful, irreplaceable diversity of human experience. That same chisel that carved the names of heroes can also etch the demands of a tyrant. Throughout history, the written word has been a formidable weapon for those seeking to consolidate power and control the narrative. Totalitarian regimes have mastered this dark art, using posters, decrees, and state-controlled media to mold public opinion and enforce a single, unquestionable truth. The monumental inscriptions of ancient rulers proclaiming their divine right and military victories find a chilling echo in the propaganda posters of the 20th century. In these controlled environments, writing is stripped of its nuance and transformed into a blunt instrument. Slogans are repeated endlessly, simplified into powerful, emotional triggers designed to mobilize entire populations toward a common enemy or a national goal. Historians note that this control often extends to censorship, the systematic suppression of dissenting voices to maintain a unified ideological front. The goal is to create a closed loop of information where only the state's message is amplified, leaving no room for alternative perspectives. Yet, even in the most oppressive circumstances, the written word becomes a vital tool of resistance. Underground newspapers, secretly distributed pamphlets, and graffiti on city walls become acts of defiance. These clandestine writings preserve independent thought and foster solidarity, proving that the desire to speak and write freely is a force nearly impossible to extinguish. In our own digital era, this dynamic has evolved with terrifying speed. The same networks that connect us can be flooded with coordinated disinformation, where written falsehoods are weaponized to manipulate elections and sow social discord. This presents a profound ethical challenge for our time. How do we navigate a landscape where the very tools of liberation can be so easily twisted into instruments of coercion? The power of writing is not inherently good or evil, but it carries an immense responsibility. Every time we choose to share a post, write a headline, or even repeat a slogan, we are participating in this ancient struggle. We are deciding whether our words will build understanding or reinforce division, whether they will illuminate truth or obscure it. The history of writing is not just a story of technological progress. It is a continuous reminder that the hand that holds the pen or taps the keyboard holds a power that must be wielded with conscience. The very clay that bore the first cuneiform wedges held a paradox. It was both fragile and enduring. A wet tablet could be wiped clean for reuse, yet once baked hard in a kiln or the desert sun, it could survive for millennia, literally baked into history. This durability came at a cost, weight, and bulk. The administrative records of a single Sumerian city required archives of thousands of these heavy slabs. So when Egyptian scribes began brushing ink onto sheets made from the pith of the papyrus plant, they unleashed a revolution in portability. This was not carving, it was painting. A single scroll could hold the content of a dozen clay tablets, was far lighter, and could be rolled and transported with ease. This new medium encouraged the development of faster, more flowing scripts like hieratic, transforming writing from a monumental act into a practical tool for daily life and long-distance communication. But papyrus, for all its advantages, was vulnerable. It crumbled in damp conditions and could be easily torn or burned, its survival a testament to the dry Egyptian climate. As the center of literary culture shifted to the cooler, wetter climates of Greece and Rome, a new, more resilient material emerged, parchment. Made from the scraped and stretched skins of sheep, goats, or calves, parchment was incredibly durable and could be written on both sides. It could even be scraped clean and reused, creating a palimpsest, a layered document where faint traces of older texts whispered beneath the new. The most famous of these, the Codex Sinaiticus, one of the oldest complete Bibles, was written on fine parchment. This shift to parchment and its binding into the codex, the familiar book form, made knowledge more robust and organized, but it was also extraordinarily expensive. The production of a single Bible might require the skins of over 200 animals, making books precious objects, locked away in monastery and university libraries. It was a quest for a cheaper, more abundant medium that would lead to the next great leap. In China, around the 2nd century before the Common Era, court officials had already perfected the art of papermaking, creating a pulp from mulberry bark, rags, and hemp. This was a material that was both lightweight and surprisingly strong. The knowledge of papermaking traveled slowly west along the Silk Road, reaching the Islamic world and then Europe by the 12th century. Paper mills began to dot the European countryside, their water wheels powering the hammers that pulped the raw materials. For the first time, a writing surface could be produced on a scale that matched the growing hunger for texts, a hunger that Gutenberg's press would soon explode. Each of these materials directly shaped the script it carried. The angularity of cuneiform was born from pressing a reed into clay. The flowing curves of Arabic calligraphy were a perfect partner for the smooth surface of paper. Today, we have moved from atoms to bits. Our words are stored as microscopic charges on silicon or in the vast, distributed network we call the cloud. This offers a kind of immortality through infinite, perfect replication, but it is a curiously fragile one. A clay tablet buried for 4,000 years can be dug up and read. A stone inscription will weather the centuries, but what is the lifespan of a digital file? Storage formats become obsolete, hardware fails, and magnetic degrades. We are creating a mountain of information that could potentially vanish in a digital dark age, a civilization's records locked in an unreadable format. Material scientists point out that our choice of writing substance has always been a trade-off between durability and accessibility. The heavy permanence of stone, the portable fragility of papyrus, the costly resilience of parchment, the democratic abundance of paper, and the ghostly, ethereal nature of the cloud. Each choice reflects what a society values most, whether it is the eternal glory of a pharaoh, the spread of a merchant's ledger, the preservation of sacred text, or the instantaneous, global flow of an idea. What will future archaeologists uncover from our era, and will they have the key to read it? The direction your eyes travel across a page does far more than deliver words. It subtly trains your brain to perceive the world. Our writing systems are not neutral vessels, they are cognitive landscapes that shape how we think, remember, and even interact with others. Consider the fundamental difference between an alphabetic script like English and a logographic one like Chinese. Reading English, your eye moves in a linear path from left to right, breaking words down into their component sounds. This process of analysis, of deconstructing a whole into its parts, appears to encourage a particular kind of thinking. Psycholinguists point to research suggesting alphabetic literacy strengthens the brain's capacity for analytical reasoning, focusing on categorizing objects and applying formal logic. Now shift your perspective to reading traditional Chinese. Here, each character is a compact universe, a visual symbol that represents an entire word or concept and must be understood as a complete unit. Processing these dense, holistic images seems to exercise the brain's capacity for recognizing patterns and perceiving contexts as interconnected wholes. This isn't about one system being superior, but about them cultivating different strengths. The very architecture of the script influences our cognitive habits. Brain imaging studies of bilingual individuals reveal fascinating shifts in neural activity depending on which script they are reading, as if the brain is switching to a different operating system. This has profound implications for how children learn. A child mastering the alphabet is learning a system of rules and sounds, while a child memorizing Chinese characters is building a vast visual library, a process that relies heavily on memory and spatial recognition. Why does this deep connection between script and thought matter for our global society? It suggests that our most fundamental tool for communication is also a lens that filters our reality. When we engage with someone from a different script tradition, we are not just translating languages, we are bridging distinct cognitive worlds. This insight moves writing from a simple act of recording to a dynamic force in the ongoing story of human consciousness, forever intertwining the marks we make with the minds we become. An artificial intelligence can now compose a sonnet or draft a news report with unsettling fluency. Systems like GPT-4 are not simply retrieving information. They are generating entirely new text, learning the intricate patterns of human language to produce works that feel original and creative. This represents a frontier as profound as the invention of the alphabet itself, pushing us to question the very nature of authorship. If a machine can write a compelling poem, where does true creativity reside? These tools are already deeply integrated into our daily lives, offering real-time translation that collapses language barriers, assisting writers with content creation, and even developing new symbolic codes for seamless human-computer interaction. The ethical questions are immense, touching on issues of intellectual property, authenticity, and the human agency behind the words we read. Futurists envision a world where personalized AI writing assistants act as collaborative partners, helping us articulate our thoughts with greater clarity and nuance. We might see the rise of automated journalism that produces localized news reports instantaneously, or neural interfaces that could one day translate the electrical patterns of thought directly into text, bypassing the need for a keyboard or pen entirely. How will this reshape our most fundamental relationship with writing, a bond that has defined human civilization for millennia? This emerging frontier forces us to look beyond the mechanics of putting words on a page and to reconsider the essence of creativity itself, challenging us to define what it truly means to write, to communicate, and to create meaning in a world shared with silicon minds. A mathematical equal sign requires no translation, understood instantly from a classroom in Tokyo to a laboratory in Buenos Aires. This is the silent power of universal symbols, a global script that operates beyond the confines of any single language. Like the ancient merchants of the Indus Valley who stamped their goods with a unicorn seal, we have created a vast library of icons to navigate our interconnected world. A red octagon universally commands a vehicle to stop, while a glowing Wi-Fi symbol promises immediate connection. Its radiating arcs a modern hieroglyph for invisible networks. In the realms of science and technology, this symbolic language becomes even more profound. The schematic for a microchip, dense with lines and geometric shapes, can be read by an engineer in Seoul or Silicon Valley, providing a precise blueprint for collaboration. The periodic table of elements is a global Rosetta Stone for chemistry, where the symbol Phi immediately conveys the concept of iron, its properties, and its atomic structure without a single spoken word. Why does this deep human drive for symbolic universality persist across millennia? Philosophers suggest it reflects a fundamental quest for a common ground of understanding, a way to strip away the ambiguities of language and reduce the potential for misinterpretation. It is a continuation of that ancient impulse to carve a bison on a cave wall, an attempt to communicate a core truth directly to another human mind. This pursuit finds its most playful and personal expression in the emoji. A string of heart and face symbols can articulate a complex emotional state that might otherwise be lost in translation, functioning as a modern, global pigeon for the digital age. From the rigorous logic of a mathematical equation to the intuitive glance at a restroom door sign, these symbols are the quiet workhorses of international cooperation and daily life. They represent our enduring hope that despite our countless tongues, we can still find a way to draw a picture that every one of us can understand. Across millennia, the story of writing reveals itself as the story of us. It is the silent, steady heartbeat of civilization, a force that began with sacred symbols pressed into cave walls and evolved into the digital code that now pulses across the globe. Each transformation, from the administrative wedges of Cuneiform to the democratizing alphabet and the global network of the Internet, has expanded the very boundaries of human potential. These scripts have carried our most profound dreams, codified our essential laws, and preserved our most cherished stories, allowing cultures to speak to one another across the chasm of centuries. This journey shows that the power of writing does not fade with time. It simply adapts, forever retaining its profound capacity to inspire creativity, forge understanding, and unite disparate voices into a single, enduring chorus. Every time you put pen to paper or type a single word, you are participating in this grand, ancient tradition. You are adding your own voice to a conversation that began in the flickering torchlight of a cave, carrying the weight of history forward into the future. The mysteries of our past are still being decoded, and your own curiosity is the key. What chapter of this incredible story will you explore next? Share your thoughts and discoveries in the comments below. If this voyage through time has resonated with you, subscribe to continue unraveling the wonders of our shared heritage, and together, let's keep the greatest story ever told alive.